I'm tired of being the invisible man. The invisible man. Oh, the invisible man.
Hi everyone and welcome to The Invisible Man. It's been an exciting show. We've actually got Amber joining us in just a few seconds, but first, some introductions.
This is Mark David Stallard. He uses his middle name. He doesn't have to.
And this is Ryan Janz. His middle name is also David, but he doesn't use it even though he should. And we are It's All in the Mind. So those of you who are not familiar with Amber Epp, wonderful musician here from Winnipeg, and she's joining us live. For those of you who haven't seen her, who don't know who it is, I've got a quick clip of a video. Let's play a few seconds, and then we'll be back with Amber.
On the road and I am traveling, looking for something. What can it be? Oh, I hate you some, I hate you some, I love you some, oh, I love you.
Well, welcome to The Invisible Man, Amber. It's a pleasure to have you joining us this month. So, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. That was the nice mime of my song.
We're in the background.
Was it
you guys
a
couldn't see us, but we could see
samba or a salsa or what was being played there?
I was shuffling. I don't know.
Oh. I was just doing the white guy dance.
Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction. I've got a kind of list of things that I'm going to attribute to you, and you can say they are true or not if you like. Followed by a question. So you are 1/3 of Papa Mambo Trio, as well as being a solo act. You're also a member of Trio Bembe, which is a WCMA World Recording of the Year winner for 2011. I should have put a comma in there. Music Awards winner as well, 2014. You've been doing solo work at the West End Cultural Centre. You're playing with Heather Forsyth. And what I'm really jealous of is that you're playing with the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra in April. And this is all this week, right? No, I'm just kidding. So tell me, I've got one question. Come on! Where do you find the time for all this?
Where do I find the time? Well, we all got the same time every day, and I spend some of mine doing music. When there's a call for a gig, I say yes. So I guess that's how I find the time.
Okay. And so do you ever say no?
Very rarely.
Okay.
There's every now and then I say no if I have to, but I've been playing music professionally for about 10 years, so
nice.
That's my job. I say yes, and the more things you can say yes to, the more opportunities you're likely to have in the future.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, for sure. We're just, before we move on here, we got a couple of people joining us live. We have Jessica Reeve, my wife. Hi, lovely. How are you?
Yo.
And a mutual friend of ours, Amber, Carol Rodriguez. Carol, hello.
Hi, Carol.
Probably Louis and Valerie and Christine, their twin little girls. So we say big shout out to everybody who's watching, and as people roll on in, I'll probably keep interrupting this going here. So I guess not everybody's privy. Well, nobody would be privy to what we were discussing before the show starts because it's not live. Good job, Brian. Off to a good start. I was asking.
That was in the script.
Yes, yeah, it's on point. Yeah, I was asking Amber if she remembered the first time that she ever saw us perform, because I had told her the first time I remember seeing her perform, and it was a Trio Bembe at Farm Fest in Low Farm. Some friends, mutual friends of ours, had a little bit of a musical festival that they did on their acreage, and Trio Bembe played there, and that was all the way back in 2010. So now the question is, Amber, do you remember? I gave you a couple minutes to think about it before we went live. Do you remember the first time you saw Mark and I perform?
Sure. So there's 2 times. I don't know which was first, but one was at a Joe Black coffee shop, and the other one was when you released a CD, and I was sitting next to your soon-to-be bride.
Who was that?
Right on.
Oh, yes.
That's Jessica. Let's not call any other names out there. I don't want to get in trouble. Okay, so yeah, right. So that would be about 10 years would be the first time I saw you. Almost 10 years. So it's 2019, still 2019, and I saw you in 2010. So that's 9 years that I've gotten to go to various Amber Ep shows, from CD releases to just Joni Mitchell jazz nights, and we'll come back to more about Joni Mitchell a little bit later. We got some questions about that. So there's a couple of questions, and I'm sure you will probably get sick of this question, but I'm gonna ask you anyways. Amber Ep, a kind little girl from very white girl from Steinbach, Manitoba, with a Mennonite heritage. Why Latin jazz? Of all the genres you could have picked, why Latin jazz?
But you can't imagine me growing up in Steinbach listening to this.
No, that's the point. I can't imagine you growing up in Steinbach. Why Latin jazz?
Yeah, so it's true. I did not grow up listening to Latin music. I discovered Latin music in university. I was studying jazz in the jazz program at the U of M, which I had also only discovered a year or two before. I kind of grew up under a rock, musically and culturally, but that's okay. I'm climbing out now. And
I would say you've climbed out at this point.
climbed out, yes.
I'd say you've scaled it successfully. You were good.
Climb is complete.
We just go, can we borrow your climbing equipment?
Yes, yeah, please help.
Yeah, so I was studying jazz music, and a lot of Latin music is like a cousin to jazz music. So when I started listening to jazz musicians, I would hear some Brazilian bossa novas or some Cuban music, and I really liked it. So I started listening to it. I started looking for musicians in Winnipeg who played that kind of music. And then, I started asking them questions and trying to like sit in and, okay, how do you play that? And what are you doing? And then I sat in with a few Latin musicians, and I sat in enough that for at least one of them, I became part of the band.
That's Papa Mambo, right?
Yes, I just kind of wiggled my way in there.
And Roddy didn't hire you because of your outstanding voice, right? He hired you because you were learning. Is that how that happened, or what?
Well, I mean, I guess you'd have to ask him, but I was attempting to sing in Spanish, even though I didn't know any Spanish, and also like play some claves or that kind of thing. He probably hired me first for my voice and not for my dance moves. As you can imagine, a Mennonite from Steinbach did not have a big repertoire of moves. There was zero. So yeah, I started singing with Papa Mambo, and I didn't know what the people were singing, so I just kind of looked to the side and kind of go, like just trying to imitate what they were doing. And then I loved it a lot, so I started studying Spanish and studying the lyrics so that I could try to sound authentic. And I've been playing ever since, growing more, learning how to play more instruments, and getting better at Spanish and a bit of Portuguese as well. And the music's lots of fun, so it's easy to put the effort in when it's fun.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's a blast to watch Trio Bembe, or even Papa Mambo. Papa Mambo is interesting because it's more of almost a jazz orchestra, right, as opposed to just a three-piece, which is, I mean, there's a lot of energy and just absolute great entertainment. So any of you people out there in internet land watching and need something to do on a Friday or Saturday, or when do you usually play at Hermanos?
Saturdays.
I was in Winnipeg. We're there on Saturday nights.
There you go, Saturday night.
Here's something,
Yeah, there you go. So now you're saying that you've learned all these different instruments. What instruments do you play, Amber? What's sort of tucked into your utility belt as a musician?
Yeah, they don't fit in the utility. All right.
You should shop where Batman does his. They think have room for everything in that belt. So.
The Ambermobile, right?
So, of course, I sing. I also play piano, and I borrowed a bass from Ryan that I'm attempting to learn, but I'm currently proficient at it.
Well, I was going to ask you about that at some point.
You've become a bit of a meme on this show because every time he brings up his bass, he'll talk about that bass and he'll say, And I'm talking to you, Amber. He'll say it every time.
Yes. No, it's good.
Okay.
I did have to. I was thinking, I was like, I didn't leave it somewhere, did it? Because I remember at one point you had returned it, and then I lent it back to you, and then I was like, oh shoot, I can't really remember. I'll have to ask her when she's on the show.
Yeah, it's still there, still learning. I also play the claves, the two sticks that you hit together. I play maracas. I can play the güiro. That's like the thing that looks like a fish. It goes.
Uh-huh.
I can play the cowbell. I can play.
You can't have enough
You
cowbell.
never can have enough
Never have enough cowbell.
Right. Some shakers, I guess.
Now,
I can play
what about the party piano, Amber?
Yeah. So that's like a miniature keyboard that you can blow into. So if you can expel air and you can play the piano, it's like a little portable keyboard that you can bring around. And
What's the actual term for the party piano, Amber?
it's actually called a melodica.
The
And it
melodica.
sort of sounds like a harmonica or an accordion, but it's easy
And I
to
think
play.
Frank Zappa played that a lot, as
Oh,
I recall.
okay. Well, there you go.
And the Beatles in their later.
It actually has a really unique sound to it, and it's
Frank
quite.
Zappa did some more wonderful things with that instrument. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Frank Zappa, really?
Frank Zappa, yeah.
No,
yeah.
I can't.
He did lots, yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
accomplished musician. Yeah. He wouldn't come on the show. I don't know.
No,
Uh,
is he still alive or is he dead?
No, that was just a little bit of black humour.
There you go. I was thinking, well, he's probably not coming on the show because he's dead. So, but I hadn't fact checked that, so I was. That's why I asked. All right, so lots of times, Amber, you've great sort of segues into introducing your songs, and there's a couple of songs that always stick out because they usually have a pretty unique story and behind their sort of creation. A song can basically come out of anything, any experience. There's one particular song about I think it was Roddy and Victor, or was it Roddy and Scotty left you alone in the middle of winter and went away, and you wrote a rather scathing, from what I understand. I've never heard the actual translation of the song, but it's rather scathing about these guys leaving you alone in the cold winter while they're off on the beach somewhere. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wasn't too impressed that they in winter and not for like a week or two. They left for like 3 or 4 or 5 months. So they were enjoying nice warm weather while I had to stay here. So I wrote a little song about how I was so mad that they left and it's so bad they left me alone here in Winnipeg. But at the end of the song, I forgive them because, I really need them to play the song with me.
So it's a little, but play the song anyways, please.
Yeah, it's a little tongue in cheek, but it's fun, and you never know what kind of events in your life will give you an idea for a song. So might as well
Showing
try it.
up at a wrong house for a party, or
Yeah. So yes, I also wrote a song based on an experience where a friend invited me to a party, and I heard the number 356. So I went to the house 356, and I opened the door. I came inside and talked to the family. I took my shoes off and said, "Okay, well, where's my friend?" And they said, "Who's that? We don't know who you're talking about." And I was supposed to be at 366, not 356. So I had to borrow the phone and call my friend and say, "Where are you?" Because I'm in a complete stranger's house.
well, didn't they know like your parents or something? It was in Steinbach, right?
They
So
knew my parents, so they saw them later and they're like, "Your daughter came to our house." I changed the scenario when I wrote a song about it, that a band is hired to go play someone's party, and they go and they play all night and everyone has a great time, and at the end of the night they go to get paid and the host says, "Well, thanks for playing, but we didn't hire any band." So then they go find the right house and they still got to play the rest of the night. So thankfully that's never happened to us, though it almost did once. 2 weddings on the same street or something, backyard weddings, but no, it never actually happened to us.
close, but You so expound on that. That's news to me. I know a lot of your stories because I end up being at a lot of your gigs, and you tell these stories. How did you almost pick the wrong wedding?
We were playing at someone's backyard wedding, and two of us were there, but our third band member wasn't. So we called him. We're like, "Where are you?" He's like, "Isn't the address this? There's a party going on here." And we're like, "No, you're at the wrong party. You better come over here." It was on the same street, and sometimes when you're going to a gig, you just look for the house that has a lot of cars parked at it if it's a house party. So I guess that's what he did, and he found out he was not at the right house, but it was on the same street, so he was able to get to the right place on time.
Well, that's good. Turned out for the best.
Yeah.
All right, so you touched on Latin jazz, but there's been a couple of concerts that I've gone to of yours. And I don't think it's any surprise that you're a big Joni Mitchell fan. How did you come to find her music, and what is it about her music that obviously attracts you to her?
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't realize I was listening to Joni Mitchell growing up when I heard the song Big Yellow Taxi, which is a really famous pop song that a lot of people have covered. But when I was in university, my fellow musician Keith Price, we were rehearsing at his house, and he said, "Hey, Amber, have you heard this music?" Because he knew I grew up under a rock and I didn't know anybody. So he played a vinyl record for me of Joni Mitchell's album called Blue. And I loved it. I loved her voice, how her voice sounded. I loved her songs. And I love that she writes music with really interesting lyrics. And the musical part of her songs, for me, tend to be more interesting than a lot of other pop music. She'll have a chord that you weren't expecting, or some instrument playing something that you wouldn't normally hear in pop music. And she's also just really well loved throughout Canada. So, and the world. She's really, really famous in the like folk music, pop music world. So doing a concert of hers is like people want to come just because they love Joni Mitchell. And then when we do a concert, we try to keep the original spirit of the song, the thing that people really like about the song, and then try to add something or change something a bit to make it our own. But yeah, she's a very creative musician, and her lyrics, some of them are just really interesting. I can't imagine how she thought of those lyrics. Like she has this song where she's talking about how much she loves someone, and she says, I want to knit you a sweater, and I want to shampoo you, and like just like really interesting things that would never occur to me.
So are you gonna sing that next time you do a Joni Mitchell concert? Are you gonna mention that song, and is that directed to somebody in particular, or are you
directed at anybody? But who knows? Maybe one day.
Are you gonna incorporate those into your wedding vows? Maybe
yeah, and with bottles
Yes. And then if God forbid that you would then get divorced, you could say rinse, lather, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, there you go. If you go if it goes the other way, you forgive the two divorcees sitting there, slightly jaded at times. So, Amber, you've mentioned it again earlier. You've been a career musician now for about 10 years, right? That's correct.
Yeah.
Making a living at music, that can be a challenge. What are some of your things? Like, what is it? Is this something that's attainable? If you were to go to talk to someone who just graduated, all of a sudden you went back to your alma mater at U of M, and we're going to talk to some of the students who are just about to graduate their music program and say, "Hey, I've been a career musician now for 10 years. Is this an attainable goal?" What would you say that, or what kind of advice would you give to your bright-eyed up-and-coming students?
Yeah, well, what I tell them is yes, it's an attainable goal, and that to be open-minded about different opportunities. I know a lot of musicians who finished university with me. A lot of them have moved to other places. some have moved to New York, some to Toronto, some are touring in Europe. One's a professor in New Zealand now. Like, so there's a lot of opportunities that you have no idea what will come your way. The thing I would tell them is that to be a career musician involves a lot of hard work and involves a lot of skills that have nothing to do with music. So, you know, how do you connect with your fans? What do you need to do online? You need a website. You need a bio. You gotta have a newsletter. Maybe you have talk shows. What do you talk about on a radio show? How do you get a grant? What's involved in recording a CD besides actually just going there? What can you do with your taxes? Like, there's all kinds of things that you don't learn necessarily when you're taking a music degree or studying music. There's a lot of things behind the scenes when you're a full-time musician that most people have no idea about, and most people don't learn about until it's on the spot. And they said I need a bio. Oh, I better write a bio. Well, how do I write a good bio? I don't know. I only have 15 minutes. I just, so
throw something up and see if it sticks, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes that musicians do that are really important for having success in your career. And also deciding, like, kind of what are your make it or break it's. I know a lot of people who they did music full time for a bit, and they're like, you know what, I'd rather have a regular income, so I'm going to do this and play music on the side. Or some people said, I'm going to do more teaching and playing. But the main thing is to figure out what's going to make you happy and what success looks like in your own life. And kind of trying things out. Like, I've tried things out, like I've tried touring, and I didn't really like some of the aspects of touring. So, sleeping on people's couches or being with the same people in the same car for 3 weeks, like, that's pretty tough. So, but you don't know until you try it if you like it, if you're willing to do it. So, so I would say, like, to be open-minded, to be willing to try new things, and to take time to learn about skills that are not musical skills, but things that you need for being a career musician.
Right on.
So, what was your biggest challenge to get to where you are? What would you say was your biggest challenge or biggest challenges? The things that got in your way.
I would say the biggest challenge is developing like a loyal fan base, people who will come out to see you. So if you put on your own show and you're in charge of bringing the people there, how can you make sure it's more than like your aunts and uncles and your parents and your 10 friends?
And how do we do that?
Yeah, please do. Share your secrets. I'm gonna get a pen here.
What I started doing. Yeah, you ready? Okay.
Yeah, we're ready. Yeah, this is good stuff. This is gold. Yeah.
What I started doing many years ago, people would often come up to me after some kind of show and say, "Oh, I really loved your music. When's your next show?" So I started keeping an email list. So whenever people would ask, "Hey, I'd like to know when your next show is," I'd sign them up to my email list and send them a newsletter when I have some kind of concert coming. And so I just do that every time somebody says, "Hey, I like your music." I just ask them, "Oh, would you like to know when the next show is?" I have a newsletter. I won't spam you, but you'll get it every month or two. And that's been an effective way for me to let people know when music is happening. Because I think a lot of people, they have artists that they enjoy watching, they enjoy seeing, but sometimes there's a disconnect between the shows that are happening and getting the word out to people. So I found that to be really, really effective. And you got to have a website. You got to have a place that anybody can go and find the dates of your shows. Mm-hmm. So those are the two important things, I would say.
Right on.
You got that written down?
Yeah.
Well, Mark does all that stuff for us. So.
Yeah, it's about time you did some of that, you lazy son of a...
I'm the looks man.
That's right. Yeah.
I have to be both because I play for myself. So
Yes, indeed. And he can pull that hat off. If I put it on, I just look like an old man with a hat.
The many hats and facial hairs of Ryan Janz. Yeah, many hats.
That's the longest you've had the same style of beard. It's like been a month now.
Yeah, no. Unlike well, like as Amber alluded to, sometimes you can't really make music your full-time thing. So, supporting a family and having a very active little toddler, no, that's just not playing for a $200 a night. If I'm not getting that every night, I'm not. I can't be doing this. So work unfortunately goes, and when I've now discovered that the work that I do, outside the realm of music takes up sometimes more time than I want. So I don't always have time to experiment with different facial hairs. I can't show up with a giant mustache and curl it around, except for maybe one day a year. Right after New Year's, when people aren't exactly sure what's going on, they're all still kind of out of it from all their New Year's parties.
Okay, actually, but we've just got a couple of minutes left. I know you've got a hard stop at 1:30. I just wanted to just kind of talk about how people can contact you. We're talking about your website, so amberep.com, and you've got a Facebook and a YouTube account, so people can look that up. What's the best way if someone wants to join your email list or contact you? Which way would you prefer them to go?
Sure. So if they'd like to find out when I'm performing, they can go to amberep.com, and there's a contact section there, and they can find how to join in that contact section.
Okay, sounds good.
Excellent.
I've just got to make sure I get this back here. Hey, we're back. Right.
Yay.
Too many buttons on the control-y thingy.
Amber, you got a gig coming up pretty soon. A big concert coming up. Tell us about that.
Sure, I'm playing on Saturday, March 9th at the West End Cultural Centre. It's a show called Canadiana, jazz versions of the Great Canadian Songbook. So I'll be doing my own interpretations, arrangements, slightly different ways of playing some pop or rock songs written by Canadians. So doing songs like by the Tragically Hip or Leonard Cohen, or Joni Mitchell, or Arcade Fire, or Tegan and Sarah. So kind of a mix of older songs and newer songs. But sort of the same idea as what we've done with Joni Mitchell before is to what can we do to keep the part of the song that we really like that's the reason we love that song. And then to do something like change the beat or change the key or add some different chords or put a different feel to it. So that's what we're going to do. I'll be joined by Aaron Shore on guitar, Julian Bradford on bass, and Daniel Roy on drums, and maybe a bit of singing as well. So that's in a couple of weeks, and we're really looking forward to it.
Is that's on your website now? The information?
Yeah,
okay.
Information on the
website. Before you leave,
amberep.com, everybody go there. Okay.
Before you leave, Amber, because you put out a request for Canadian songs before, have you learned the Black Fly song that I have so graciously suggested every time that you put out?
You can keep suggesting it, and I will keep ignoring it.
Well, that sounds like a perfect way to end the show, doesn't it? Actually, Ron and I will hang around for a few more minutes. I know you've got to get going, Amber, so I don't want to keep you too long. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show, and hopefully maybe you can answer this when you're off the air in case your answer is no, but I would love to have you back on the show sometime in the near future.
Sure.
Okay, so sure. Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot.
Okay, that's good.
Bye-bye. There we go. That was Amber Epp. And I see Amber still. You can hang up anytime you want, Amber.
You get to go.
Here we go. All right. So let's go. So we can see a whole lot of things you can't. There we go. So again, thank you very much for Amber there for joining us. That's been good. Actually, it was something I wanted to comment on. I didn't want to interrupt Amber there. But was one of the biggest challenges that I experienced is I've got so many things on the go. I mean, just creatively. Yeah. And it's really, I don't want to do the business stuff. The business stuff is really difficult, and it's really not natural to me. The creative stuff is really easy. I mean, I'm writing books. I'll be promoting this soon, children's book.
Special price just for you.
Special
price.
Up
to negotiation.
Yes, $400, and that's
open
special.
to negotiation though.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll be promoting as a children's book that I've been working on for years. Decided to finally release it. I do the animation. I got the animation, which I did for the brand new one for the beginning of the show. And there's a whole slew of other things that I want to do, write as well. Yeah, so
I know the same thing. I mean, obviously, my professional life is full of electronics and computers and stuff like that. But I have a passing interest in that, and I love things like photography. I volunteer and do sound work for my church, and I've done sound for our gigs. And just having so many things on the go. And then, of course, it's a little different for you because your kids are a lot older than mine. But my daughter obviously takes up a long time, and my wife obviously is going to take up a good chunk of that too. So trying to find time to practice.
Yeah, it's your fault.
No, it's not.
Camera,
No. Please let me come home.
Well, not for another hour or two, because we're going to go out and get a bite.
But you're trying to write music, and I love photography, or even trying to pick up a pen and pencil and sketch and draw, or even get the watercolors out and paint. And it's just like trying to do all those things and manage a professional life and a personal life and all those things, and trying to jam it in there. It's a lot easier when you don't have those other commitments. But then the problem is that there's not always the financial backing to support yourself, right? And so if it means, having roommates, or if it means, living in the not so greatest places, if that's part of the challenge of just being able to do your creative side of it. But then Amber's, it was absolutely where she hit the nail right on the head. There's so many other things. So if you're going to be creative, and now you've got write-offs for gear, things that they never tell you when you go and write a music degree.
For those of us who are self-taught.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the schmucks like us who are musically illiterate, and I can't read note music. That's my big musical regret right there, as I think I've now alluded to twice, not being able to read music.
So that'll be explicitly stated. And that's not
it's my new
the second
meme.
time. The second time anyway. That's your new meme. But you can still blame Amber for that.
I'm not going to blame anybody for that.
She's got that bass. She's got that bass.
There you go. Whatever you're done with it, Amber.
Yeah, we got that, and because we're both in that the same boat, being family men, as well as we haven't performed in it's been a couple 2 or 3 years, yeah. And the main reason for that is that we just had time for family, friends, work, and all that other stuff just kind of take over. Well, now we do have some news for those of you who are waiting to see us play live. We have started practicing. We are going to be. We actually have a gig booked, and I can't remember what the date was, but I've got a show coming up in May, I think.
Yes, it's in May.
And there'll probably be one or two between there as well. And I think we're going to actually do an open mic or two, just so we can kind of get back in the swing of things. Try out a couple of things that we've been working on, between things that we might do between songs and stuff. So we'll see how that goes as well. But that's why we'll do an open mic, and it's going to be fun. And I think next month, the next show, hoping that Colorado Phil is going to join us. He's a radio host, and I've seen been involved with a little bit of his, been watching his show. Just recently reached out onto YouTube rather. So it's he's on 2 radio stations, Tri-Lakes Radio. I can't remember the other ones, but he's
he live casts that too, right? I think.
So yes, all live. Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 hours a day. It's a lot of radio he plays. He plays primarily, I think, almost completely independent music. And he's featured us a couple of times, so that's really exciting. And he's helping us out. But I guess we're helping him out by giving him music, but he's helping us out by playing it. And anyway, he's going to join us on the show hopefully next month. We've just got to figure out dates and times. If he can't make it next month, then it'll be April. But he's going to be on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get to know a former Winnipegger who's now living in Colorado, so that's going to be exciting.
You bet. No, it's I'm looking forward to it. So we'll see you guys all next week and
month.
Or yes,
yeah, that's mine. I got him onto it.
I blame you. No, we'll see you guys all next month. It's been a great show.
So thanks. And this is just so you know who you've been listening to. This has been Ryan David Janz, bassman extraordinaire. Yeah, baby.
And that's Mark Stallard, that plain old dad guy.
And we are. it's all in the mind. Thank you much, and we'll see you next month.
Adios.
Oh.